Hello, Jimmy on Clubhouse. Come on in, guys. We're going to start the day number 6 of this 7-day water fasting challenge that I've been doing here on Clubhouse. And thank you for joining me here on Instagram. And if you're brand new to the Jimmy on Clubhouse room, this used to be called Jimmy Rants, and I positioned the room to basically be a replay of my Clubhouse room. So if you're new to what Clubhouse is, it's kind of a new kid on the block in the social media world. I actually like Clubhouse. I think Clubhouse is going to revolutionize social media. I think Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the rest, just they missed the boat on this, that Clubhouse has tapped into removing a lot of the negativity and the hate and everything, which has dominated traditional social media. Clubhouse has stepped in and said, okay, we see you there. We see you're frustrated. How about this? And it's been a wonderful thing. You guys that have been here every day for this water fasting challenge, you know I've got a great community over on Clubhouse. So Clubhouse, just those of you that don't know, download the app if you have an iPhone or some kind of Apple device. And then you'll be put on a waiting list unless you have a friend who has your phone number in, no, I've not started yet, Kat. A friend who has your phone number. I'm talking to you guys, Kat. See, I can talk to you before I get on the air. You're anxious, Kat. Unless you have a friend who has your phone number in their phone. So several people have DM'd me, including Kitty Caddick, and said, hey, help me get in. And so I'm like, okay, text me your phone number and your name. I put you in my phone, and almost invariably I'll get a little notification up here on this little bell up here that will say, okay, a friend of yours looks like they're trying to join. Would you like to let them in? So I've done that for quite a few people lately. So definitely, if you want to get on Clubhouse, do it that way. But yeah, I like to come on a little bit early for you guys and just check in on you. So yeah, we're doing a 7-day water fasting challenge. And so day number 6. And I know a lot of you have been following along. Really incredible information all week. I'm thinking about taking the audio from all of these 7 days and airing it as one like humongous episode of the Living La Vida Low Carb show. It's going to be over 10, 12 hours. So that's going to be a hefty episode. So I'm going to see if my producer is going to be down for that. That's going to be a big file if I do that. But that would be fascinating to listen to, like 7 days of kind of all this information we've been sharing. That would be really neat. So you're very welcome, Kat. Happy to help anybody get into Clubhouse. All right, so guys, let me go ahead and start early over in Clubhouse. I'm not sure how many will be here on a Saturday, but you don't know till you go live. So let's go live. Here we go. Come on in, guys. We're getting ready to start day number 6 of my 7-day water fasting challenge. Been a lot of fun all week long, kind of providing information about fasting. So come on in, make yourselves at home. I know it's a Saturday, and not sure how many people will want to be on Clubhouse on Saturday, but I guess we're about to find out, aren't we? How many people do Clubhouse on Saturday. If nothing else, we do have the Jimmy on Clubhouse peoples over at Instagram. And hello, Judy. How are you?
Hello.
Hello. Have you been impressed by 6 days of fasting? It's just, this is cool.
Yes, I am absolutely impressed. How are you feeling? I'm just ready to sit and listen to how you are feeling.
Yeah, I feel really fantastic. Other than what we talked about yesterday when Dr. Caitlin was explaining, I've been having some gastric distress in the midst of this. And she's like, you know, if you're dealing with something, speaking of Caitlin, it was like Beetlejuice. And then there's Caitlin. I was just talking about how you were giving me some advice yesterday, Caitlin, about why I was still having tummy issues. And I'm still having them even now. And she said, if you're fighting something off, that could manifest in those gastrointestinal things. And so, yeah, that was mind-blowing yesterday, Caitlin.
Good. And remember, I don't give advice on Clubhouse. I just give suggestions.
Yes.
Or possibilities.
Yes. No. Mechanisms. And I love learning the mechanisms. And I would definitely love if Dr. Amir, if you'd like to come up to the stage, I would love to have you contribute as well if you'd like. Hello, Dax. What's going on, buddy?
Hello, Jimmy.
Hello, Dax.
Hello, Dr. Caitlin. Good to
Hey,
see you all.
So Dax, what hour are you in now?
120, 131, almost, 6 days?
Yes.
That's 120, 140, probably about 140. I'm coming up on the end of my 6th day.
Yes.
So,
and I passed.
Interesting anecdote.
Yes.
I got up about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I mean, I hate to say this in day 6, but I got to be honest. I had some real severe lower back pain and hip pain, and I had taken probably a quarter teaspoon of salt with my water when I went to bed, and that wasn't doing me any good. So I got up and I took a full spectrum electrolyte supplement, and within about an hour, all the pain was gone. So
nice.
Apparently I needed some additional electrolytes there.
Caitlin, do you see that a lot with the clients you work with, the patients you see, where they have some kind of ache and pain, and invariably it comes back to an electrolyte issue?
On occasion, yeah, there's a lot of different underlying issues that could be potentially causing those like really deep aches and pains, and it definitely can be an electrolyte imbalance, especially if you are deficient in, the electrolytes prior to the fast. That's just going to exacerbate it. And then the other thing is that deep healing that we talked about with stem cells, and how amazing the body is at knowing where those stem cells need to go and start to heal. So there's a few things that could be causing that deep aches and pains, and so always trying the electrolyte and see if that alleviates it, and if it does, fantastic. So I'm glad you feel better, Dax.
I do feel great now again. It's, the fasting process is different every single time. I have fasted, I can't even count how many times over 30 years plus, and no two are alike. It just depends on the condition of your body going into the fast, the time of year you're fasting, whatever stressors you're incurring in your life at any given time. So there's no template for a fast per se, because you just have to go into it with an open mind, that you're willing to accept the healing crises involved in the fast.
I see Dr. Amir just joined us on the stage. How you doing, bud? Are you there? He came up on stage and now he's a mute. There you are. Hey, Amir.
Doing well.
Hey,
How's
bud.
it doing?
Good, sir. Any comments on what you've heard? He must be in the middle of something. Okay, so 2 days ago, I was talking about how I had knee pain. Dax, you said you had back pain last night. Fascinating that what you said, Caitlin, a couple of days ago. You've been dropping some bombs this week, so thank you for that, about how that's some of the healing taking place. And I was talking about tweaking that left knee and feeling like a really severe pain there. Yesterday, that pain was gone. Like, how does it go from really severe to suddenly gone? I know you kind of explained this, but maybe there's new people listening today. It's a miracle.
Yeah, that's just part of the beauty behind how our body functions and heals. So when given the right environment, our body is meant to heal. And so by taking out digesting food, by taking out having to detoxify from, the foods that we're eating and all the other things that go along with eating, your body's literally given the ability to start healing some of those old injuries, especially when you're putting your body in a state of stem cell production. So massively increasing the amount of stem cells your body is producing, because stem cells are literally what our cells are made out of. Stem cells can become any cell in the body. It can become bone marrow, it can become a kidney cell, it can become a skin cell. And so when we have, sorry, my dog's making a little bit of noise at the moment.
Hi, Poochie.
When we have the stem cells present, the stem cells can go anywhere and start healing some of those old injuries that maybe didn't completely heal over time. So
Yes.
That's a lot of the frustration behind fasting, I find, is people get discouraged almost because they're like, oh, I hurt, I ache, and it's not necessarily a bad thing.
and they blame it on the fasting, much in the same way people quit keto because of the so-called keto flu, and there's healing taking place there, and or transition from kind of shifting from sugar burner to fat burner. And so you're seeing similar types of cycles in a fast as well. And I love that we're kind of bringing all this up. Let me set the room, you guys. This is Keto for the Soul. Click on that little green house at the very top. Amir, I saw you flash your mic. I'll come back to you in a second. Hit that little green house at the very top. Subscribe to this room. Miss Judy is here in the room with us up on the stage. Hello, Judy. Thanks for being here today. And we're really glad to have you here in this room. I am your host here, Jimmy Moore. I've got Dr. Caitlin and Dax all on stage as moderators, and Dr. Amir popped up to offer up his medical expertise as well. Thank you guys for being here. Definitely hit the hand at the bottom if you have any questions about fasting. Yes, we're towards the end of this extended fast, but pretty much any question about fasting, we will take it. We got a couple of subjects I want to hit before we get to those, but we're also simulcasting over on the Jimmy on Clubhouse Instagram page. So if you want to see replays of this, you see I have REC next to the title. That's because I'm recording live over on Instagram Live. So definitely go check out Instagram Live IGTV as soon as this is over. You can watch the replay and put it up over there. Also put it up over on YouTube. And may likely, I was just thinking the other day, Dax, I should run this as a back-to-back 7 days all in a row in one podcast. That'd be like 12-hour podcast.
Well, I think that's actually, people could go and pick out snippets that apply to questions they might have or situations they might have while fasting. It's been a real good experience, I think, for everybody that's been involved in your fast.
Yes.
This has been a great panel to be on. I really appreciate you having me up here. And I really appreciate Dr. Caitlin and Lindsey and some of the fine people that have been up here,
yes,
expressing their opinions and their situations as it relates to fasting. So yeah, this has really been great.
I have people who are sad that we're ending it. It's almost like we become family, Caitlin. So it's cool. Pretty cool.
Oh, I don't think we'll ever stop being on panels together, but maybe with a little more nutrients involved.
Yes.
From the outside world.
Yeah, a 7-day meat challenge. I'm up for that one a little more than water fasting. All right. So, Dr. Amir, you were going to say something before I reset the room?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for allowing me this space, this opportunity.
Sure.
Just briefly to share, part of the reason why some of those aches and pains are leaving, because understand that when your body is producing stem cells, it takes a while before those stem cells are directed from a multi-potential cell to the specific type of cell that it's going to be. But in the case of the water fasting, in the time frame of days, right, the primary thing that's contributing to some of the healing is the reduction of inflammation.
Yes.
And why is this occurring? The reason that this is occurring is because, well, let me give it to you like this. By day 5, growth hormone is increasing, right? You've already started to see spikes in your adrenaline, which in adrenaline being pumped out, you're going to have less sensation of pain just in general. But now in terms of the inflammatory cells, by the time you hit about day 8, day 9, your body is beginning to try to replace those memory cells and other things. So it's getting rid of, it's discarding old immune cells, old white blood cells, and it's refreshing them. Well, what's happening during that time? Well, typically when we talk about inflammation, right, and we talk about swelling in different compartments of the body, you have to understand that a lot of times you have a lot of different blood cells that are also in that environment, right? They're detecting something in the environment is not right, and so oftentimes they're kind of surveilling, right? Because we have this thing called extravasation, which typically occurs like when there's an injury or something like that, and a immune cell is coming to the area to carry out repair. And so in the case where you've been fasting for this long period of time, funny enough, as your body is swapping out these cells are leaving that inflamed area, right? Because they're being swapped out. So they're leaving, they're returning to the thymus, they're returning to these other places. And during that time, that gives the opportunity for that inflammation to be cleared, right? So when you have old injuries, things of that nature, also just giving the opportunity to get some of those white blood cells to leave the area, right? Because sometimes that inflammation sticks around whether there's still a disease process going on there or not. Those blood cells want to stick around. And so having something that's driving them to leave that area is also a contributor. So if you fast and you hit like 9-10 days, you know, and you see this early on in fasting too, you'll have those times where you feel cold and you don't know why you're so cold, right? But once you get past that and now you feel hot, you're having some issues potentially with sleeping and stuff like that, and prolonged water fasting. Once you get to around day 9, day 10, that feeling of cold comes back, and that's because all these blood cells are leaving. They're being swapped out. So I just want to keep in mind that that's also part of it. And sometimes when you quit water fasting, sometimes you'll notice that some of that pain will come back. But what happens is if over time, right, you're doing this fasting and you begin to change the way you live in general, some of these old injuries will be taken care of, because you, just like Dr. Caitlin was sharing, that those stem cells, those other things, if there are still pluripotent cells around, those cells will become specific types of cells, and it's not for every part of the body. Some parts of the body we don't see them as much. About 3 to 4 years ago, we found out that there were actually stem cells just beyond the fourth ventricle in the brain, where we thought that there were no stem cells actually sitting there. Before that, we couldn't prove it. But a few years ago, we actually found evidence that there are even some stem cells sitting in the brain. But these are just interesting things. So there's so much in the world of water fasting. It's a beautiful thing.
Woo! And he dropped so much in there. I'm like trying to go back in my mind. What do I want to pick out of that? So I love how you broke down the swapping out part. Like I think this is something people can visualize. And thank you, Dr. Amir, by the way, for joining your expertise here today. Like this explains why people feel so good at times and then feel so bad at other times. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, it kind of messes with you a little bit.
Yeah.
If you don't know the science behind it, it can really get to you. But once you start studying it and you can find the resources, something that is reliable, and you can read that, then you kind of begin to expect it. And then when you see it, you almost celebrate it instead of dreading it, because you're like, yes. It's a shift.
That's where I am right now with all this gastrointestinal stuff, after Caitlin was explaining how it could be an infection, and that's just your body's way of getting rid of the waste from trying to help you heal from that infection. I'm still I'm in hour 144, and just before we got on the air, I had another issue. And yes, for all of you playing at home, I still have stuff coming out. So not much, but a little bit. But I do it. I celebrate as that stuff's coming out, because I don't want it in me.
And two, when that's happening, you know, as your body is going through all of this fatty breakdown, right, it's all these toxins that are being released. And so that also contributes to you feeling like crud, because it's getting rid of all these toxins. But you'll start noticing these skin changes.
Yes.
That's also really cool. You know, if you've ever been a person who struggles with, like, say, acne, or you got these other issues, you'd be surprised how many things begin to be cleared up just by turning down the fork for a while. And of course, you know you need to do this in a safe fashion. If you got pre-existing conditions, this is not intended to be medical advice. Let me put that plug in. I'm noticing that's becoming more popular. But if you have pre-existing conditions, of course, whatever you do, if you decide to do something like this, please do it within a community. Try to have somebody that you can align yourself with, who can kind of help monitor you and kind of guide you through the process, especially if you're new to it, because, you know, your body is undergoing some shocks. And so clearly, like when people were talking about headaches and stuff like that, a lot of times those things are electrolyte imbalances, particularly sodium. Potassium will decrease a little bit, but the sodium, that's the guy that decreases the most, and that's because of its relationship with sugar. In the body, and I've said this before, but in the body we have these things called symporters, right? And these are these cellular transport mechanisms where glucose and sodium tend to run together. And so when you're shedding all this glucose and you're pretty much in ketosis, now there's not as many things that are helping to hold on to that sodium. So you're going to shed that salt in a very, very profound way that your body's not used to probably shedding salt at that rate. And so you'll get these headaches and these other things. And so I always just recommend, make sure that you're having a cup of broth, those things like that. And then you can give yourself a little bit of potassium, not much, but a little bit of potassium. Make sure you get magnesium and some of these other things. And I'm sure you guys have already covered it because this is so much value. I love these rooms.
Yeah, we appreciate your input here today. You dropped a bunch of mad bombs. Between you and Caitlin, I feel like I've gotten like a PhD level of understanding of fasting, and I thought I knew a lot, and I did know a lot, but I know a lot more now. So, Caitlin, to that end, he did bring up that like by day 9, 10 is when you kind of see that reintroduction of the colder. And I've got a lot of people are asking me, can we go longer than 7 days? And the answer is absolutely. In fact, I'm at that point, Caitlin, where I think if I feel as good tomorrow at this time as I do right now, why would I stop?
Yeah, you gotta just listen to your body. Your body will tell you and give you clues as to when you should break the fast. So I'm hoping that that's something we'll talk about today.
Yes, we are talking about it right now.
Oh, well, perfect. I was going to say, Dr. Amir, oh my gosh, I'm getting tongue-tied already. Amir, I love the science behind it. You were speaking my love language, the physiology, the biochemistry. And I'm sure you guys find it too. Fasting is kind of like poking like a bruise. It hurts so good, but sometimes you just keep poking it and you don't know why. Like it hurts, but it doesn't hurt. And that's really what happens with fasting. We get almost addicted to it. And I love what you said. We almost anticipate feeling bad, but knowing how good we're going to feel at the end. So if you want to keep going after 7 days and you feel good, great, do it. Absolutely. Keep going. And you want me to throw in like a few things like
sure.
When you should break the fast?
Yes.
Okay, so one thing we haven't talked about is the color of our tongue. So we actually should be looking at our tongue. And when we're fasting, you're probably going to notice it change from day 1 through day 7. And what typically happens is we typically will get more of like a coating on our tongue as we're fasting. And it can be anything from like a thick white to almost like a light yellow. And that's your body's way of expressing not just toxins, but potential yeast imbalance, any other types of gut imbalances or infections. And so that's why I really love tongue scraping, just to clear that off. But when your tongue goes back to a bright pink and there's no more coating, that's typically a good indication that now's a good time to break your fast. And not in a bad sense. It's just your body has already gone through and cleaned out everything that it's going to clean out during this fast. The other thing is if you do get the actual hunger pains and your tummy won't stop grumbling and you're starting to get that like cramping feeling in your stomach because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm actually really hungry now. It's not just that you're thinking about food. It's like, I gotta eat. That's a good sign of needing to break the fast. And then if you're getting headaches or really, really, really like deep throbbing, aching pain, and the electrolytes are not helping, time to break your fast. So those are the big ones that I typically see most often.
Right.
And tell people, yeah, it's probably a good time for you to break your fast now. You've got the benefits that you were supposed to this time, and you can always go back in a few months and do another one.
The only pushback I'll give on some of that is on the breaking it because you feel the hunger thing. And in general, you're right. But also assess what is your body doing at that moment. Are you under a period of stress? If you are, maybe try to mitigate the stress, and maybe it's not time to end it yet. I gave the example a couple of days ago where I was really upset, day number 3 of this fast, and my stomach growled for 45 minutes in a row. And I could have easily said, okay, well, that's my body telling me it's time to end the fast. But I knew what was going on. I was highly stressed, really upset about something that had happened. But what I did was meditate, get sunshine, grounded, all the things, and deep breathing. And within 2 hours, I was able to come back from that. And now here I am in day number 7. So I guess assess why that hunger's happening.
Of course. And I was just going to, let me do one more thing. Go back through all those tools that we talked about, especially during the beginning. And if none of those things are taking care of it,
yes,
if it's not going away,
that's right.
You've increased the electrolytes, you've gone and, contemplated what's going on. Am I really stressed? If none of that is working, then it's time to break the fast. Especially if you're starting to get lightheaded and starting to see like the little stars when you stand up and things like that. Definitely time to break the fast.
Oh.
Dr. Amir, what were you going to say?
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was going to share a little bit too. Understand that a lot of times when those hunger pains are coming on, you gotta understand too that your metabolic rate is being driven further and further up, because your body is trying to give you enough energy to go and find food. And so what happens is there are changes in the rate of mobilizations of fatty acids. And so that also sometimes contributes to it, because there are other things that are being released at the same time, particularly some of the bile and some of these other things that are occurring, which can cause a little bit of stomach discomfort. So it's good to keep that in mind too. The thing that I would say most for me in terms of like the prolonged fasting, especially as you get, as you start to kiss day 10, day 12, something like that, that's when you want to make sure that you consider your heart muscle, right? Because you have what's called the protein sparing effect that comes in after about 48, 72 hours. You start getting protein sparing effect. And most of the protein that you're losing initially is not muscle. So let me debunk that, because there are a lot of people who try to spread that. No, it's mostly excess skin and hair. But once you get to day 72 hours or so, and you got this protein sparing effect going on, but now you're out towards day 12, right? The thing that you got to think about is your heart muscle, because at a certain point, the body will then want to use more protein eventually. And so the thing that sometimes I would say for somebody is, if you begin to have more chest pains, and if you have chest pains or you have something like that, consider doing like modified protein fasting, where you have maybe one shake a day, like a protein shake or something like that. And the reason that you're doing that is because you want to protect that heart muscle, right? And so that's the only caveat, right? But as far as the longest recorded fast was 300 and some odd days. It was like a day short of a year or something like that.
380.
The person had,
I think it's close to 380 days.
Yeah, and that fast, the person had some minor electrolyte stuff,
yes,
but primarily was fairly healthy. So is it possible to fast for a long time? Absolutely. But what are your intentions? Why are you fasting, right? By the time you've got to day 10, day 12, you've made significant progress. For example, in terms of your bad cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, right? Your LDL cholesterol has been reduced quite substantially. Your good cholesterol, HDL, has been increased. Typically, if you had blood pressure issues, those blood pressure numbers have gone down. Your insulin, your basal insulin levels have gone way down. You've immobilized a lot of fat. So if you were insulin resistant, you're probably becoming more sensitive to insulin. So this is good for the type 2 diabetic. Your triglycerides have been immobilized, and prayerfully you've been hydrating the entire time so that you can properly get rid of those triglycerides. Those are those fatty acids that are floating around, so that you don't get gallstones and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're consuming a lot of water. But at that point, right, the biggest thing I say is just think about protein. A protein shake to sustain you if you're going longer than that. But most of the indices that you're looking for, a lot of those objectives you've achieved. And then the other thing that I wanted to put with all of that is that when you're coming off a fast, just making sure that you don't cause yourself to go into refeeding syndrome. So taking it very, very slow.
Yeah.
And you're going to get several days. You're going to get several days of additional burn. This is the beauty of it. As you slowly reintroduce stuff that your stomach can handle, right? You're going to get extra burn during that time. You're going to get extra benefits. So while you may have water fasted 10, 12 days, you have additional time in ketosis, right? And so that I just wanted to share that. I hope that some of that has been helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to get into breaking a fast here in a minute. So thank you for preview. That's called segue in a minute, you guys. So thank you, Dr. Amir. Dr. Rebecca came on stage. I wanted to let her talk. So we're talking about extending the fast. A few people have said, hey, I feel good, Rebecca. Can I go longer than 7 days? What say you? Are you there, Rebecca?
She says nothing.
So let me go to Jimmy on Clubhouse. Norma says, stopped at 120 hours yesterday. I kept getting worse. Remember yesterday she was describing how she wasn't doing so well. So she stopped at 120, had some bone broth. Within a half an hour, she felt 100% better. I'm glad I listened to my body and I feel good today. So that's good. That's what we want, right, Dax?
Yeah, Jimmy. I wanted to mention, yes, that is good. And I'm glad, actually, based on what she said yesterday about her situation, anytime you're questioning whether you should continue or not, it's always better to err on the side of caution. So I'm glad she did that. I did want to say, with regard to Dr. Caitlin was talking about natural hunger, we had spoken earlier in the week about exercising during a fast, and light exercise, in my experience, is fine. Walk a mile, half mile, just walk around the block, get some circulation going. But toward the middle and end of the fast, if you're really wanting to be in tune with your body and sensitive to that natural hunger, I always tend to limit or eliminate all physical exercise. I try to rest more, try to be more in tune with my body. The longest fast I've done is a 15-day water fast, and on day 14, that's when I felt my natural hunger come back, and I also felt that it was time to break the fast. But I didn't, from day probably 8 to 14, I wasn't hungry at all, but I knew that as soon as I needed to break that fast at that time.
Yeah, that's good. And listening to your body is definitely a theme song I've heard all week long. Dr. Rebecca, you back? Nope. She popped up. Hopefully she hit. Yeah, go ahead.
She was going to share something on the women's health piece of it, because you know, several days before menses and all these other things, women have some extra things to take consideration of in terms of how they fast and how they do it.
Yeah.
Women have a little bit more complexity, and so I love it when the women doctors come in and share these things, because I think it's better for you to hear it from a woman who has actually experienced it, rather than just some male who knows the information.
Yeah, Caitlin and Rebecca both have been definitely schooling all of us dudes on all that information, so we're grateful. So thank you for pointing that out. Let me go back to Jimmy on Clubhouse on Instagram. Marcus says, I'm feeling better today, day 6, than I did on day 1. Probably wouldn't have made it if I had not had the support of this group. Thanks to all. This is why we do these things. Like I think the corporateness of it all. I know Brian's up on stage and he said the same thing to me in a comment of, I couldn't have done this if we didn't have the corporateness. So this is why I like doing these things, Caitlin, because people, it's not that they don't have the motivation to want to fast, but there's just something about doing it corporately with others that just the camaraderie keeps you going.
Yeah, it's the accountability. And it's an ancestral thing that when a group is doing something, you want to join in and you want to contribute and you want to go along with it. And so it makes it so much easier. And I actually love doing group fasts because I do better when I'm doing a group fast versus just doing it by myself, even though I've done hundreds of fasts and I've been doing it for years upon years upon years. I just find that when I'm doing it with other people, you get better results. It's more motivating, and it's so fun to hear how everyone is progressing and to be like, oh, I'm not the only one feeling like crap today.
Right.
Wait, like there's other people who are like pushing through, and I don't mean pushing through. If you need to break it, but it's just so much easier. So I agree 100%.
Oh, can I chime in real quick?
Please.
And here's the thing, too, I wanted to share with people, too. I mean, obviously, you do need to listen to your body, but understand that if you're a naive faster, i.e., i.e. you haven't been doing this, you haven't done it before, it's your first time doing it, some things can be a little bit more prolonged for you. For example, how fast your body gets into ketosis, how efficient your body becomes at breaking down those fatty acids. It may take a little bit longer if you're a naive faster. In other words, this is one of your first times, if not your first time fasting. Definitely it could take a little while, because I heard the lady that said at 4 days she had to stop, she took some bone broth.
Yes.
And that's great, but I would say going forward, like as you if you decide to do it again, all those kind of things, you're gonna find that some of the things that you experience, you're gonna experience it earlier, and it's not gonna be as prolonged. So that's just because your body is just kind of in that shock mode, like, oh, what is this? and so that's just part of that picture. But yeah, definitely when we do things as a community, it's doing things as a community. Since we were made for community, it's easier than doing things alone. And
for
that's
sure.
just in all facets of life.
Absolutely. Back on Jimmy on Clubhouse on Instagram, Norma said, I did have a victory during my fast. I have had severe Achilles heel pain for the past 3 years. By day 3 of this fast, it was all better. And today the pain is still gone. That's cool. Really cool. Good job, Norma. And thank you for hanging in there. All right, so we're going to reset the room, and I want to bring up how we break the fast before we get to your questions, you guys. But this is Keto for the Soul. Definitely click on the green house at the very top. You can subscribe to this Clubhouse. Lots of great Clubhouse rooms all day long. Go check it out. We are in the midst of a 7-day water fasting challenge. Today is officially day number 6. A bunch of us up on stage are deep into the fast. So definitely, if you're into fasting, you've been doing this with us and you haven't spoken on stage, or even if you have, come on up, tell us your story, ask us your questions, and we'll get you on the air. But I do want to shift to, since we are on day 6, Caitlin, how do you break a fast? Because it's not just a matter of just reintroducing food. That's the easy part of thinking that's what it is. It's so much more complex, and Amir kind of previewed it. Tell us how you talk to your patients about this.
Yes. So a little bit goes a long way. Our eyes are going to be bigger than our stomachs. And so we don't want to eat a whole lot. And what we eat is really important. So how I like to break, especially an extended fast, 7 days, 5 days, even 3 days, I like to make sure that roughly 2 hours before I'm going to reintroduce something other than salt or water to my body, I am going to drink a cup of salt water. So I usually will put quarter teaspoon, half a teaspoon of the really good salt in some water, drink that down to help with the cortisol. I really want to make sure that my cortisol production is being well managed and controlled. And then about an hour after that, I've been playing with drinking a little bit of water with some cinnamon to help with my insulin response.
Yes.
When I do increase or introduce something to my body. So I will do that. And then after that, I typically go with a liquid, and it's usually bone broth. And the reason I want bone broth is because it's going to be easier to digest. It's going to be full of vitamins and minerals, and the quality is going to be really important. If you can make your own bone broth, it's ideal. And I'll drink about a cup of that. And then an hour later, because honestly, guys, you're going to eat and then be real full.
Yep.
And then after the bone broth, that's when I'll start to ease my way into other things. I might do a collagen powder next, but collagen without all of the added sugars and all of the foo-foo stuff. Not to poo-poo Josh Axe's collagen stuff. I wouldn't do that because there's a lot more ingredients in there that I don't want to introduce to my body after not having food for 7 days. And then after that, I'll do fermented foods. So because I want to start to re-inoculate the gut bacteria. And so I'll do different sauerkrauts or kimchis or different fermented vegetables. And then I'll start to slowly reintroduce steamed veggies. I do not like to do veggies and fat at the same time, because when we reintroduce carbohydrates with a fat, what's happening is we're causing an insulin increase. We're opening up our fat cells, and so we don't want to be shoving more fat into our fat cells. So I keep my fat and my carbohydrates separate for the next few days, just to make sure that I'm not undoing all of the benefits that I achieved. And then the next day is when I start to reintroduce proteins, because proteins are far harder to digest. And when you haven't been stimulating your digestive enzymes, when you haven't been stimulating actual digestion, you really don't want to jump into doing a whole lot of protein. I even caution people on eggs, especially in the beginning, because that can be really problematic and cause people to have disaster pants, as Lindsey calls it. So that's how I do it, and I do it very slowly. And reintroducing foods for me and my clients is really a 2-3 day process, depending on how the person's health is, how their gut function is. But those are the steps that I typically take.
That is quite methodical, and I love it, because it's like, all right, we're going to mitigate any potential harm that you might have about what Dr. Amir was talking about regarding refeeding syndrome. And it is a thing, by the way. And I see on stage we have Brian, who had a steak dinner last night. We had to like coach him because he wanted to go right in there and have that steak dinner.
Tonight.
What's that?
I think it's steak dinner.
Oh, that's right. It's tonight. But we had him break the fast yesterday so that he could prepare. We'll get him up here in a minute. Dax, how are you going to break your fast?
Well, I'm not an expert. I have a lot of years of experience fasting. It's kind of evolved over the years. I like to, similar to what Dr. Caitlin said, I like to start with a bone broth. I like the recommendation of the cup of salt water before the bone broth, however, and I may do that. I'm going to have to break my fast about 6 hours early tomorrow, because I'm in a tennis tournament on Monday. So I don't want to be completely depleted when I go to that. But anyway, I'll start with a bone broth, and then I will wait at least 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. And then, contrary to Dr. Caitlin's advice, which may be better, I do have a couple of eggs, and I may actually put a few slices of avocado on those eggs. And then that usually is what I'll do on the evening before the next morning. And it's only at the next morning that I will start introducing any kind of real solid foods, anything that's combined with carbohydrates, and particularly glucose. I really avoid glucose the first at least 24 hours before I take any of that in.
Yeah, don't go eat a bowl of strawberries, Amir, right?
Not at all.
Can I finish one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Dax.
Sorry, Dr. Amir. I just was going to say, I love the thought of the collagen protein, Dr. Caitlin, and in fact, I'm going to put that in between the bone broth and the eggs and split that up at least with 3 hours in between, because the Bulletproof actually makes a pure collagen, unflavored collagen, which is 100% collagen protein. And I did get some of that yesterday because Dr. Caitlin recommended that. So I'm excited to use that in the breaking the fast process as well. So
Nice.
Thanks, Dr. Caitlin.
Let me know how it goes.
I will do that. Thank you.
Yes. Dr. Amir, do you have any tips for breaking the fast? You kind of gave us some of the science.
So I've listened to Caitlin, I listened to Dax, powerful shares, absolutely on target, wonderful, right? So I don't have anything to add from that standpoint. But what I do have to add is just maintaining the habits of what you should be doing when you're fasting, right?
Yes.
So thinking about things like, for example, green tea, right? It's going to help suppress appetite, and you're increasing those antioxidants. Because remember, even as you're getting ready to come off fast, you want to keep that burn going, right? It has EGCG, which is a catechin. It's part of the catechin family, and it's going to cause. It's going to affect satiation, right? So what it does is it increases cholecystokinin, right?
Yes.
And this is going to then increase dopamine, and it's going to and norepinephrine as well, which is going to give you extra fat burning. But at the same time, that increased dopamine is going to cause you to have less hunger, right? As well as the fact that caffeine, when if you can have caffeine, right, saying that you don't have any other issues going on. That caffeine can inhibit GABA, and it's going to help to produce a calm effect in the setting of fasting. Now, caffeine in other situations where you're not fasting actually can increase, but that's another story for another day. I'm going to avoid branched chain amino acids during that time, and sugar alcohols as well, because that's going to drive me to want to eat maybe more than what I should be eating, especially when I'm reintroducing food. The other thing that I want to put a plug in is that when I'm drinking broth and I'm thinking about these things, especially when I'm talking about regulating cortisol, the stress hormone, I want to make sure that magnesium is a component of what I'm doing, because magnesium in particular decreases cortisol in a profound way. The other thing that I also want to think about during that time is that apple cider vinegar, and I shared this probably last time, but apple cider vinegar is going to decrease insulin levels, right? And so keeping my insulin levels low, because I want to maintain that burn that I'm experiencing. I want to slowly edge back into, reintroducing foods to my body, but at the same time, I want to continue reaping those benefits of that burn. And the other thing is that it's going to increase absorption of, say, calcium, which when you increase absorption with calcium, which typically is absorbed best in the presence of vitamin D, when I increase the absorption of calcium, I'm reducing bone resorption, right? Because even as I'm introducing this stuff, my body is still undergoing some catabolization, and the thing I want to, of course, always think about is my bone. So making sure that you're taking vinegar while fasting, that's going to reduce your bone reabsorption through the entire process. So this is something that you really want to do, if you can, right? Just maybe like a half a teaspoon, maybe less. And let me see. Gosh, I want to get all of this out, because I just want people to have this. Making sure that you're drinking plenty of water.
Yes.
Always. You want to keep flushing those fatty acids. You want to keep flushing your system, because you don't want to develop gallstones and those kind of things. So all those things you want to do in addition to what was so excellently shared by Dr. Caitlin and Dax, who's had quite a bit of experience. And understand that through this process, I'm sorry, this is off topic, but understand that through this process, your VO2 max is going up.
Yes.
On top of all this other stuff, your VO2 max is going up. And that's so important for how you feel during the day, your ability to tolerate exercise, all these other things. So there's just so many benefits. I'm sorry, I could go on forever, but I'm going to stop right here.
We're all getting a PhD in fasting today from Dr. Amir, Dr. Caitlin, and now we got Dax, and now we have two new moderators on stage, Dr. Rebecca and Lindsey. Dr. Rebecca, are you there? Any tips on how to break your fast?
Yes. Okay. So I'm pretty methodical as well. Like Dr. Caitlin, I'm like just introducing something every hour, and it's very similar to her. Like I'll introduce like bone broth 1 hour. I'll do another hour of bone broth and butter, and then maybe an hour after that, depending on how my body feels, I might blend up some avocado in my broth, and then after that, introduce. I will do some like low carb veggies, so there's a few things that I like to implement. I was introduced to it in Eastern practices of healing in regards to when your body is healing to utilize warm foods. It's a really big practice in helping women heal postpartum after going through something so strong. I make 24 hours afterwards, even if I do introduce like kimchi and like fermented foods into like my, breaking my fast, but I usually just add it into the broth after it's been warmed. So I like to stay, number one, within the warm foods to elicit more of a healing response. Another thing I like to do, because in the last couple of years, have utilized fasting to heal my gut microbiome. So I like to do a lot to help with the gut. So one thing I always recommend is that even if you're drinking broth, start the chewing process. And even if you're having soft veggies, like make sure to chew thoroughly. And then when you are breaking your fast, that you're in a calm setting, you listening to the news, because we do know that when you're fasting, your motor complex has kind of shut down. You're not releasing these enzymes. So starting that process of chewing is starting to wake up your digestive system, and then being in a place of connections with being in a stressful environment and not producing enough stomach acid. I also like to utilize things like I will, even again, if you're healing your gut and you want to work on gut, I've utilized things like some like high dose like Aspalardi, or I really like spore forming probiotics like Megaspore that I might introduce 24 hours into. Actually, I would introduce Ion Biome before I introduce a probiotic. But that's liquid, so I like to utilize that about maybe if like the next morning, if not that evening. So I like to work on the gut a lot when I start breaking the fast, which is what I'm going to be doing tonight.
Excellent.
So yeah, I really love it. And yeah, I mean, one thing I struggle with when I would break my fast is having loose stools and from consuming too much fat. So I've had to even be careful with that with myself, because I am one of those people that like, okay, I want to eat some steak. I was like that, but I have too much fat.
Yes.
Create loose stools, and now I don't have that issue.
Could you do a filet mignon? That's pretty high in protein.
Oh gosh, I could not do anything like that, dude. I can't even do I don't have a gallbladder either, so I can't even do
that's right.
little bit. Like even when I utilize avocado, it's I can't take too much because my body just can't get. When I do start increasing it, I'm always on ox bile anyways. But when I do, I've got to be very careful of that.
No gallbladder, no thyroid, and a dog named Lucky.
Exactly. That's right. I'm like, dude, I should call myself the doctor of organ.
Dr. Screwed.
Thank God I woke up to the truth, because who knows what else I was going to get cut out of my body.
Yes. Well, you're an inspiration to all of us, and I really appreciate all your mad knowledge. Lindsey, what do you have as far as breaking the fast? And then we'll go to Jackie, Brian, Jennifer, Simona, and everybody else.
Hi, thanks so much. Those are all amazing suggestions. I definitely love what Dr. Rebecca mentioned. I know Dr. Caitlin, we've talked about this as well too. So really focusing on the sensitivity, taking it slow, but also the sensitivity of the gut, capitalizing on the opportunity to repopulate the gut and support the healthy gut microbiome, because that's a huge part of what has been happening with the longer fast. Is in addition to all the other autophagy and the stem cells, it's a really great opportunity for the gut to heal. So yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, taking it slow, taking it low, and then focusing on those gut healing properties. Thank you.
Slow, low, and healing. I like it.
Oh, Jimmy.
Yes.
Can you have Lindsey speak to the women's health part? I believe I heard her in another room at some point speak to the women's health, and I would just love for her to share that with the audience. I'm looking at the ratio out here, and just think that it's a wonderful opportunity here in this space.
What specific question do you have about that?
I just wanted her to share with the audience about women's health in general, when they should be fasting, what's a good time to not be fasting,
okay,
what's a good time to be introducing carbs.
I like it.
I felt like she gave some very astute answers in that area.
Oh, Lindsey's the bomb on that. What you got for us, Lindsey?
I'll keep it brief. Thank you so much. For all the women in the audience that are listening who may have never done a long fast, I'll address that specifically, because we're in Jimmy Moore's 7-day water fasting challenge. So when is a good time to do a fast like this? Well, it's definitely not the week before your cycle if you're a cycling woman, or if you're in perimenopause and you are having a longer cycle, longer space between your cycles. That would not be the time right before you're coming up on that cycle time. So the best time would be actually right at the beginning of your cycle, from the time of bleed to about day 10 if you're on a 28-day cycle. Obviously this can vary a little bit if you know when you ovulate, specifically, it would be shortly before you ovulate. Those first 10 days, as an example, will be the perfect time to do a block water fast because your hormones are at their lowest, and we don't need the elevated estrogen. As our estrogen starts to rise towards progesterone, we need to support that hormonal process so that we do ovulate. And then as estrogen comes down and progesterone needs to rise so that we will shed the uterine lining, we need to support those hormonal processes. So we don't need to be breaking down, we need to be building up at those times. So I hope that is helpful. Thank you so much.
I hope you guys were having your pen and pads ready, because that was a powerful shit right there.
Can I add something too?
Yes.
That I would make a lot of sense with what I know about fertility health and about, but I completely never really processed it until I heard Dave Asprey bring it up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this. Like, so one thing that he did bring up, like, I don't do any intense protocols. Like, I help women with fertility issues and like hormone imbalances. But if I know that we're 90 days out from them possibly trying to get pregnant, those 90 days are so crucial. So I will not detox them. We're not doing anything really intense. We are just going to nourish them 30 days, like within that, 90 day leading up to when they're going to start trying something. I'm like, of course, that makes so much sense. So fasting, well, he's starting to see studies now. Fasting, like 3-month period, is really beneficial and helpful to fertility health. But once you get to that 90-day period, which this is why I also don't detox in that 90-day period, whatever ovary that you're going to utilize is already starting to kind of be prepared to be dropped. He said that one thing that they're starting to see in studies is that a body that is doing a lot of restrictive fasting within that 90-day period is going to prepare to release an egg to deal with a stressful environment and restrictive eating. In other words, he was saying that not recommending any kind of restrictive, and maybe not even pushing 12 days leading up to when you're going to try to get pregnant, because then the body thinks the environment is stressful.
Rebecca, you're cutting out a lot, sweetie. We're going to go ahead and cut it off there.
But that was very powerful.
That
it's
was
spot on. It's very spot on. So please I hope you guys took notes.
Thank you, Amir. Jackie, let's get to the people on the stage. Jackie, you're up first. What you got for us, sweetie?
Hi, Jimmy. I regularly, I do 16/8 or 18/6 all week most of the time, and regularly do 36-hour every week, no, 40 actually. Currently planning on doing a longer fast in a couple of weeks' time around the spring equinox, and the longest I've ever done is 93 hours, which is about 4 days, and I'm wondering, should I aim for a 5-day, or which is what I thought I would do, but now listening to all this, I'm wondering, is a 7-day a good jump to do?
Caitlin?
I think you need to do what your body is going to tell you to do, but what research tells us is, for sure, once you get to 5 days, you're starting to get maximum benefits from autophagy and growth hormone. So at least shooting for the 5 days, not to mention stem cell production and utilization. And then if you can, shoot for the 7 days. But if you only make it the 5, that's fantastic. It's longer than what you've done before, which is amazing. And you're getting all of the added increased benefits of making it to the 5 days.
You know what's amazing to me is all the people that say, I'm going to do a 48 or 72 hour fast. I'm thinking, if you go 48 or 72, why not go longer? You just went through the biggest hell of the fast. Why would you end at the very time when the beginning of the fun part of it begins?
Right, and the reality is all you've done is you've just used up your glucose stores. You've emptied your liver, you've emptied your muscle, and you're miserable. And now all of the benefits, all the things that you desire to see happen, you get very little of a return for really what is the most expensive part of the investment up front.
Right. Jackie?
Thank you. And I had one other question,
sure,
which is, during that day 2 and 3, which I know are the hardest, I feel like I'm not hungry, I'm perfectly fine, I feel okay, but I get what I call a head hunger, as if I want to eat, I like eating, and I want to eat. Have you got any tips for getting through that part?
Dax?
I would say put yourself in a jail cell. No, you actually, Jimmy had mentioned, sucking on some rock salt, just the mechanical, the mechanics of eating. If you can somehow simulate those, whether it's that or chewing or sucking on an ice cube, things that mimic the production or the action of eating will give you some solace, not entirely, but I mean, honestly, if we get right down to it, it just requires the discipline to push past that. And it's always best, just like we mentioned earlier in the week, it's best to have at least one person that knows you're fasting, just for the safety of it. In case anything goes awry, you'll have somebody that knows what's going on and can help you get assistance. But in addition to that, I usually don't tell many people that I'm fasting, just because the social ramifications of that from family and friends are that you're going to get pushed back from them. One, because they don't think they could do it, so they don't want you to do it. Number two, even if they just deeply care for you and are worried about you, that's added stress of social anxiety is going to weigh heavy on you when you're trying to fast and get through, especially the hard parts of day 2 and 3.
Hear, hear.
May I add a value add right there?
Sure, Amir, go ahead. You don't have to ask.
The other thing is the crushed ice piece, right? Like if you're crushing ice, like if you chew crushed ice or something like that. The other thing that you got to remember is that crushed ice is very, very cold, right? And you're introducing it to your system. Well, your body has to heat that up because your body wants to achieve homeostasis, right? It wants to be at that 98.6 for most people, right? And so what's going to happen is your metabolic rate is actually going to go up a little bit from that. So you're burning even more calories. So that's just one thing that's beneficial to the chewing on the ice, in addition to the hunger satiety. The other thing is if you drink, say, tea. Do you drink tea? Tea is a very good appetite suppressant. So sometimes just having some tea, a little bit of broth, with some magnesium, those things can curb appetite like you would never believe. So just a couple of ads. I don't know if they have any value or not for you, but they are things that I've seen and I've used and have experienced some success with.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. I have to scoot because my family's waiting for dinner. So
Thank you, Jackie.
Catch you another time.
Hope that helps you out. Hey, Dr. Amir, are you wearing a Bluetooth headset? Because you're really hot on the microphone. I don't know if you can pull it away or something. It's a little hard. You get muffled at time. It's so hot. Just wanted to make you aware.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
No worries. Well, you get passionate when you talk. I love it. You're very passionate when you talk, and it's awesome. I love it. Brian, we got our guy that's breaking his fast yesterday and eating his steak dinner tonight with no alcohol, right, Brian?
Yes. Hey, Jimmy, Dr. Caitlin, Dax, Lindsey, Dr. Amir, and anybody else I forgot to mention. But I just want to say thank you very much for having me on. Again, I want to apologize from yesterday. First and foremost, my audio connection was pretty lousy, and I apologize.
It's all good. What you got for us, bro?
Yeah. So anyway, okay. So yeah, I broke my fast yesterday. I made it to 115 hours.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So I got that under my belt, and so I'm a little embarrassed to tell you how I broke my fast because Dr. Caitlin and Lindsey and whoever that have talked about breaking the fast, I didn't do it exactly what they recommended. But what I did, I had some peely nuts, which went down fine. I had just a little bit of peely nuts. Then say maybe like an hour or so later, I had some Parmesan cheese, just a little couple of things of Parmesan cheese, got the saliva going and chewing. And I also, like an hour later after that, I did some nut butter. And that was last night. Woke up today. I slept fine. I woke up today. No problems, no GI effects. From my conversation I had with you guys a couple of days ago, no BM movement, no BMs at all. still. So I don't know. But this morning I woke up and I had some bone broth and another thing of nut butter, and I'm doing well. I don't feel hungry. I don't feel full. I don't feel like I have to go. I'm just am. So that's my experience today.
Well, Brian, you shouldn't have any bowel movements. You don't have enough food in your system yet, bro. Wait till you have that steak dinner tonight, and then tomorrow you'll probably have that first bowel movement.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I re-listened to your show yesterday, and I'm going to definitely not do the alcohol. I will be doing a steak, and I'm planning on bringing a couple, half of it home if I get too full. But looking forward to it. And I just want to say real quick before I let other people speak, I cannot thank all of you enough. I could not have done this without you, all of you. And it's been such a wonderful community, such amazing information. I love all of you guys, and I'm, to be honest with you, I told this to Jimmy on one of his comments. I am quite sad that this is coming to a close, because I just had such a just the community that has been that I'm involved in today. This whole fasting has been amazing, and I cannot thank you guys enough. And thank you so much for all of your advice.
Thank you, Brian. And I'm not opposed to doing more fasting rooms down the road. And the problem with fasting is everybody's at a different place. And so we're finishing up a week-long fast. We're not going to week-long fast again anytime soon, but there will be others that could. So this could be kind of a nice clubhouse club idea of like have a fasting room and then have people lead them each week, different people. I guess that would be tricky to balance that. Anyway, I'll work on that, Brian.
I would love it. I would absolutely love it. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Jennifer is another one of our ones who joined us this week. She had to break it a couple days ago because of the elevation that you were at. How are you doing, Jennifer?
Hi. Hey, I'm doing great. I just wanted to pop in. I'd really like to echo Brian's comments about how great it's been to have the information and support. Yeah, I did have to break the fast 72 hours in because I foolishly went up to our cabin at 7,000 feet during the fast, and I was feeling like I was going to pass out all day long. But I just wanted to pop in and comment that I have been feeling the afterburn. I have been feeling so good since I did just the 3 days. It is the longest fast I've ever done at 72 hours, and I can definitely feel that I got some benefits, or I do just feel really, really good. I don't think I quite methodically broke the fast as well as I could have, because I just didn't realize, but I did have broth initially, and I've been kind of trying to ride the keto wave out of this a little bit.
Yes.
And my hunger has not been a lot. I definitely have not near the hunger as normal. I think it's kind of slowed down my hunger. I've just been having smaller meals and maybe 2 meals a day.
Yes.
But smaller meals, and that feels like plenty of food for me.
But that's a good thing, right, Jennifer?
Oh yeah, I mean I feel wonderful. My body just really feels great.
I love the afterburn, and I'm really curious about the panel, what she said about I did 3 days and I didn't break it like you guys are talking about. Is it different breaking it if you're 24-hour fasting, 72-hour fasting, and 7 to 10 day fasting, Caitlin?
Yeah, I would definitely say so, because even at 24, I wouldn't necessarily, break it with, the standard American diet per se, just because you're going to have a different effect. But the longer you go without food, you do want to make sure that you're being more methodical about how you reintroduce things, because your body hasn't been digesting food. So you almost have to warm it up, get the digestive enzymes flowing again, get the stomach acid going, almost remind it how to do it. And the best part is when you do it slow and slow, like we've been talking about, that afterburn is going to last far longer. So the effects of the fast are going to be far more than the length of time that you did it. You could potentially extend your fast, depending on, again, how you refeed it, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, as to how you continue to eat. So the answer is, the longer you go, the more methodical you need to be.
Dr. Amir?
And specific, and she is absolutely right. And specifically, you got to think about it like this: 24 hours, 72 hours. Although there's been, although you're starting to hit the point of autophagy, by the time you hit 72 hours, you get maybe a little bit of ketone production, some of these things. You got to remember that your cells are still able to put out those proteases and those lipases and things of that nature. But now when you're talking about, you've been fasting for 7, 8, 9, 10 days, your body is not producing as much of these proteases and lipases and amylases and all these enzymes that are responsible for breaking your food down, simply because it has not had a need to, right? So it's not producing those enzymes at a higher level, right? It's other things that are being upregulated. For example, it's putting out more of those enzymes that are responsible for fat breakdown. It's putting out more enzymes that are responsible for other things, not for the digestive piece of it, but for the fat enzymes that are responsible for breaking down long chain fatty acids. So those are the things that have been upregulated during that time, while these other enzymes, they're pretty much haven't been in use, and so the body's not producing much of it. So then if I'm 7, 8, 10 days out and I just reintroduce food, being cavalier or thinking that, you're going to be a warrior or something like that, that's where humility comes in. And I share this not only from the scientific perspective, but I share this from the first time that I did it, where I was cocky and got quickly humbled.
Yes.
I think we've all done that, Dr. Amir.
Yes.
So true.
Agreed.
I just wanted to mention that I've learned so much from this group, and thank you so much. And I really look forward to doing a longer fast next time with all this information I've learned from you. And I just have one last quick question.
Sure.
And that is, Dr. Caitlin, you had mentioned following the cycles of the moon. Will you remind me one more time how much time I should let pass, and when would be a good time to maybe try again?
Absolutely. So Jennifer's question is referring to women who are in menopause or postmenopause, and they're just not cycling anymore. And so when we don't have that bleed and we don't have that ovulation day, we can do things a little differently. But what I recommend, and what I found with my postmenopausal patients, is they do really, really well when they follow the cycles of the moon and utilize that as their fasting timeline. So on the new moon, take that as day 1 bleed. So you're going to have to look at a calendar, ladies. And then on the full moon, take that as ovulation day. And so what you don't want to be doing is, you do not want to be doing these long block fasts, these water fasts, or really extended fasting. Like, I really don't even recommend doing 24-hour fasts. I would recommend sticking more around the 16-8 cycle between days. Well, you can essentially take it between the full moon and the new moon. So ultimately, the best time to do these longer extended fast, even lower lower carbohydrates, is between the new moon and the full moon. So it's literally just taking the moon cycles for what a menstrual cycle would look like. Does that answer your question, Jennifer?
I think I may still be confused. So right after the full moon start, or right after the new moon?
After the new moon.
Right after the new moon. Okay.
The new moon, and then until the full moon, is a great time for postmenopausal women to do longer block fasts.
Okay, so between the new moon and full moon. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
I wanted to add too.
Yes, please, Rebecca.
Hello?
I said yes, please, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure if anybody can hear me. I've been having horrible reception. But I also think it's really important when we're looking at doing multiple fasts for women that refeeding is absolutely important. And I think the one thing that we do have to be aware of is that between the fast that we're doing, making sure that I like to utilize macros in the refeeding period, but I utilize it very differently. I think that women can be a bit too restrictive if we're not aware of what we're eating on a daily basis. And so I like to utilize macros, not necessarily like, oh, look, you're restricting carbs, but more so to track the fat and protein as a way to allow nourishment. So I think the refeeding for women that are utilizing fasting as a tool is going to be just as important as, what the fast is and when they're doing it. It's making sure that you're eating enough good quality fat and proteins to nourish the body before attempting to do another fast.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Rebecca. Dr. Amir?
Yeah, there's one more.
Oh, sorry. Dr. Caitlin?
Oh, I just wanted to throw in, as for how often we should be doing it as women, I honestly don't recommend doing it much more than every 3-4 months, because you do want time to replenish, rebuild. So this is not something you should be doing monthly or even every other month.
Dr. Amir?
Okay, and just as as a medical doctor, the other thing that I want people to be mindful of, especially postmenopausal women, since I didn't hear this added, and I'm sure everybody knows this anyway, but still, just in case, in your postmenopausal state, right, as you get to that place and you pass menopause, your estrogen levels are lowering, right? And so, of course, those things can put you at risk for osteoporosis, and those estrogen levels were those higher estrogen levels were protective against heart disease. And so when those levels are lowered, you also have less protective you have less protection against heart disease. But if you're in a ketogenic lifestyle, that's not as big of a concern for you. But that osteoporosis piece is, and so this is why I also want to be mindful and share with you as well that if you're going to be postmenopausal doing these water fasts, make sure that you consider adding the vinegar for the calcium piece. Make sure that, obviously you should be taking vitamin D and calcium, but remember that vinegar is also going to help increase the absorption of calcium in the gut, and that's going to help protect your bones. So I just wanted to say that as well, because remember that fasting, autophagy, it's a catabolic state. For much of it. I mean, obviously you can build some muscle, but it's catabolic for many of the body's tissues. And so the thing that you always want to protect as well is your bones. And so just remembering maybe like a half teaspoon of vinegar during those times when you're fasting as a postmenopausal woman, because you want to protect those bones. You don't want osteoporosis. And most people that I find who are doing that fast are combining that with some resistance exercise, which also protects against the breaking down of the bone.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Amir. Simona, you're up next.
Well, hello there, and thank you so much. And I think a lot of these questions are being answered. I had some questions exactly because I am 64 years old, and I wanted to know what would be the best time for me. And when Dr. Amir was talking, I am very new to this, and how do you get started? Because I try every day to do at least 16-8. My longest fast was 26 hours, and then I just felt like, oh no, I sucked myself out and just thought, oh, I gotta eat. So what do we do to get past that? That was my question. And then I'm fasting for the reason of my diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and I have the dawn effect, so always it's higher in the morning, so I fast till it comes down, and sometimes it does take quite a bit of hours before my blood sugar does come down to a more of a normal state of 89 or 96 or even 110, something like that, and then I feel okay, I'm comfortable to eat.
What is a long time? How long does it take to come back down to that level?
It depends. Sometimes it takes several hours. So it could be like 3 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon before it actually comes down. Sometimes, 2 in the afternoon. So it is several hours after awakening that it will come down. But I've been very interested in the fasting because, of course, I'm learning more about the insulin resistance and so on. I'm not on any medication, and I'm trying to do this just by the low carb or keto diet with the intermittent fasting. And I was in the room with Dr. Jason Fung the other day and ordered his book, so I haven't received it yet.
I've heard of him.
I'm sorry, Jimmy?
I said I've heard of him.
Yeah. So, he has written a couple books on the complete guide to fasting. And
yeah, I've heard of that too. I've heard of that too.
Jimmy wrote a book with
Jimmy
Dr.
was-
Fung. That's why he's.
I was the co-author,
He
Simona.
was a co-writer, right? Yeah, you guys worked together.
Awesome.
Sorry, I was just having fun at your expense, Simona. Sorry, keep going.
So I'm just new to it, and I've kind of popped in the room here and there where I see you. I'm following you, Jimmy, and a couple of the others in the room just to get myself a little bit more familiar.
Yes, keep learning.
I just want to know. So the new moon and the full moon. So if I start on the new moon, how many days before the full moon comes? And should I still be trying this every day as a practice, or should I still, I don't know. I'm kind of confused on how to go about really sticking with it. And I give everybody such great props to go past a whole day. I don't know how you do it. But,
Simona, I'm in hour 147.
Wow.
Yeah, it can happen.
Amazing.
So, I'm sorry, what? Go ahead, Amir.
So just before they come in, because you got Dr. Caitlin, you got Lindsey, you got Dr. Rebecca, so you got some powerful resources up here. Just before they speak, the other thing that I wanted to put out there is that vinegar, that same vinegar that is helping with the absorption of calcium and reducing bone resorption, that same vinegar is going to reduce your insulin levels. We don't know why. And it's also going to reduce insulin resistance. Okay? And then thirdly, it's good for gut health. So just making sure that you're adding a little bit of vinegar early in the morning, it's beneficial. It's very beneficial. And you'll find that out when you read Dr. Fung's book as well, because we apparently stumbled across some of the same studies. And he's man. That guy is brilliant.
So
I wanted to add one thing, because I know the women are going to add something here. This is Dr. Rebecca. The one thing I do want to touch on, and I'm sure Dr. Caitlin Lindsey will have some comments on this as well. I do want to clarify that menopause itself isn't the cause of it's not a disease process, and that going into menopause, if your adrenals are well, you will produce the appropriate amounts of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone that you need. So I want to reiterate that, because when we're talking about refeeding, and when Dr. Caitlin is talking about allowing there to be a break in between these longer fasts, it's because we want to help to support and nourish your adrenals. So in perimenopause and into menopause, you're becoming on your adrenals for any hormones that you need. So that refeeding, that nourishment is really important so that you can make sure to have enough hormones to support the healing process.
Thank you. Lindsey, we hadn't heard from you in a while. What you got?
Oh, I was going to clarify, Dr. Amir, when you were talking about the vinegar, are you talking about raw apple cider vinegar?
Yeah, it's apple cider vinegar is a good one, but actually with the insulin levels, you can see it with distilled vinegar. You can see it with multiple kinds of vinegar, ironically. But I guess there's not too much of a difference there. But I just want to be clear though. Apple cider vinegar is wonderful for those things. So I would just say add that to your tool bag, right?
Lindsey?
Great, thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what you
Bragg's.
mentioned vinegar. There's so much, Bragg's, and it's always a real popular one, and I was just curious if there was a difference. So thank you.
So Dax, you use the Bragg's brand?
Typically,
sorry. Go ahead, Amir.
There hasn't been studies that I found that really adequately compared the effects of vinegar, but just that the basic effect is observed with vinegars, period, right? Whether it's apple cider vinegar or distilled vinegar or these things. I mean, obviously, the cleaner the vinegar, in terms of it being distilled vinegar or apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
Those things are great to go with.
So Dax, you use...
Vinegar? Oh.
Sorry, I'm so used to leading a group. I'm used to leading a conversation, so people jump in. It's it's making my mind go crazy. So I will call you in, I promise. So Dax said he uses the Bragg's brand. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I use the Bragg's raw apple cider vinegar. It's unfiltered, unprocessed. It includes the mother, and it's, in my opinion, it is the very best vinegar you can use. I really appreciate...
You really appreciate your cutout, brother? Going once, going twice. All right, Rebecca.
Oh,
Sorry, you cut out. Dax, you're back.
Oops, are you there?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Yeah.
You said you really appreciate.
I really appreciate Dr. Amir mentioning the apple cider vinegar because I've used that for many years for a lot of things. And one of the things that I use it for is when you're coming off of a fast, when you get ready to eat your meal, and I wish I would have said this when Brian was still here as he's getting ready to eat his big steak dinner. When you are getting ready to eat your first big high protein meal, I always use a digestive enzyme that I take along with the meal just to give some added benefits while the body's ramping up the HCl production to digest proteins. And in doing so, you're aiding the body's ability to digest the food that you had before your body was able to fully digest it with its own digestive juices. So it just gives it a little bit of a help there, and it's a good thing when you're starting to eat big meals again.
Rebecca?
Sorry.
Sorry. You paused on me, Dax. Don't pause, brother.
Sorry, Jimmy. I apologize. My reception is a little bit poor right
Oh,
now.
you're good.
If you're eating a large meal, and if you happen to get acid indigestion after the meal, it's counterintuitive, but if you will just take a teaspoon or a teaspoon and a half of the Bragg's raw apple cider vinegar after the meal, when you have acid indigestion, it's not for too much acid, it's because you have too little acid.
Right.
So the apple cider vinegar, it's got a pH of about 3.5. It will help to digest that food that you've just eaten in your big meal.
I love that.
Little aside there.
I love that, Dax. Rebecca, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I have a bad reception here too. I was just curious if we're talking about utilizing apple cider vinegar in a fasting window, and if so, has it to see their glucose response? Because I feel like if in a fasting window, I know it has very, very, very little amount of carbs, but it could create a glucose spike.
Interesting. Dr. Amir?
So it's reducing insulin levels. And in terms of seeing a glucose spike, that spike is going to be negligible if you are continuing that through your process. Because remember, if you're water fasting specifically, you're not introducing any caloric intake, right? And so the things that are going to kick you out of fasting is when your body encounters about something on the order of about 6 grams of glucose, particularly. The body begins to try to kick you out of ketosis, and so you of course want to make sure that you're not taking more than that. When you're taking about a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, you're going to be fine. It's so little that it's not enough to make a big deal about, especially when you look at what the gains are, right? Because the biggest thing is getting those insulin levels down. The biggest thing is getting those insulin levels down so that your body, especially if you have insulin resistance, so you have type 2 diabetes, you want to get those insulin levels down so that when your body begins to be reintroduced to sugar down the line, you're able to properly store glucose the way it's supposed to be stored, as opposed to putting it in blood vessels, which is the major problem in type 2 diabetes. It's in-organ damage caused by glycosylation of small blood vessels, like in the kidney, in the eyes, in the peripheral limbs.
Thank you, guys. We got a bunch of people still on stage, and I don't want to take up too many more minutes with our Saturday here. Celeste, what you got for us?
Hi, I joined the discussion. I usually am in Chef Mike's Keto for the Soul every morning, and now this is my first full month of keto, and I just was listening in to learn, and my question was, would it be good for me as a new keto diet person? I've had absolutely no sugars, no carbs for a month, and I heard that this could be good for your high blood pressure. And so I thought about it and said, well, maybe there's a way I could get started with a fast without really going to the extreme length. Is there an extreme length, or what would be the best way basically for me to do a fast, my first fast.
Right. So if you've never fasted before, just go for the longest you've ever done. So what is that now?
I think I eat usually around noon.
So about 16-ish hours you think is the longest you've done? Maybe 16 hours?
Yeah, and that's because I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe try to do a 24-hour just to push that window a little longer and see how you do. See, this is not a race to, oh my gosh, I see Jimmy is doing a 7-day fast. Oh my gosh, they're talking about long fasts. We didn't just jump to 7 days. I promise you. Every one of us up here. Yes, ma'am?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. I said every one of us up here, had to go low and slow until we reached this point. And so don't, yeah. So if the longest you've ever done is like 14 to 16 hours, try a 24 and see how you do. And then when you accomplish that, try to, the next time, maybe try 36 to 48 hours and see how you do. Build upon it.
Okay. I'm really enjoying everything, and I just wanted to make a comment. I wish that the lady doctors would do a room just around menopause, because I'm learning so much. I'm 56. Thank you.
Girl, we'll do it. We'll figure out how to do, because we're women are a little more complicated, and there's a lot more information that goes behind it. So Lindsey, Dr. Rebecca, and I have been doing rooms, but we've been including men in it. So maybe we'll just do a women only. What do you think, Lindsey?
I'm game any day.
The fasting ladies. That would be cool, like a room for you guys to create. Thank you, Celeste. Deborah, what you got for us?
Hey, Jimmy.
Hey,
everyone. Thanks for bringing me up. I've been listening to the replays all week, but it's the first day I could get on live, so I'm excited.
Yay.
I'm doing great. I'm at 141 hours fasted, and my questions are going to be about breaking a fast as a strict zero-carb carnivore with a tiny bit of background first. So I've been carnivore for about 16 months now and was keto with fasting before this for many years. I've done many 3 to 5 day fasts and 7-day fasts about 1 to 2 times a year, but no 7-day fasts since being a strict carnivore. I do naturally IF for about 20 hours a day and usually eat 2 meals in my 4-hour eating window. So my questions, and hoping one of you know others like me to help, are going to be about what to eat when, how much, and when I can go back to my usual amounts, and especially about fat. I'm on maintenance after losing over 100 pounds and now eat higher fat with my meals. I primarily eat beef. And by the way, past experiences show I don't do well breaking my fast with eggs. And by the way, I don't do vinegar. So here's what I was thinking. To break my fast with a cup or 2 of bone broth with lots of salt, popping an oxtail into my Instant Pot, which has a lot of collagen, natural collagen in the cartilage, and having that like an hour or so later. So is that too fatty? Should I just have a small steak? I love that. Can I add beef suet or bone marrow to it?
Yeah.
Or is that too much fat too soon?
So,
Okay, that's it.
Dr. Caitlin, you want to take this one?
I'd love to. So I would do the same thing that I do, because how I break my fast is the salt water before, then go into homemade bone broth, because it sounds like you make everything, which will be fantastic. And then what you can do next is the collagen part. So you can get just a pure collagen. You can get collagen from the oxtail. But then the next thing I would probably do is bone marrow. So I would probably roast some bone marrow to get more of the vitamins and minerals in it before introducing the actual like muscle protein, just because it's going to be really, really hard to digest. And then if you're not doing vinegars, you might just want to consider potentially taking like a digestive enzyme just to get your digestive juices going again, so that you will have an easier time getting back into digesting the animal protein. And then the next day I would do more of the meats. I would probably pressure cook them or like Instapot them just to make them very tender, very easy to digest, make them already partially digested. So that would be the progression that I would do if I were doing carnivore and trying to break a 7-day fast.
Thank you. So the broth, so the salt water, then the broth, and it's okay to do the oxtail even though there's meat on it, and then the marrow, and then have that just be it for the day, and then the next day go to like a Instapot beef day.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat the meat on the oxtail though. I would save that for the next day. So I wouldn't be introducing the actual meat until the very next day, and I would do that extremely low and slow because you could get what Lindsey calls disaster pants.
Yeah.
And, you don't want that. So
and truthfully, I'm okay with that because A, I'll be home, and B, I have not had a bowel movement in 9 days, since 2 days before starting the fast.
Yikes.
That's typical for me. No constipation or pain or anything because as a carnivore, I really only go every 3 to 5 days, and then when I go, it's for a few days, but all really normal as a carnivore because I don't have a lot of stuff to get rid of. So I wasn't surprised, and I'm not worried. I could use a good poop right now. So
I know, but Deborah, the only problem with having massive amounts of diarrhea is you're also getting rid of the good bacteria on top of it. So we want to minimize diarrhea. Yep. It's not ideal, especially after a fast. So it can happen. Don't get me wrong, but it's not something we want to induce on purpose.
Thank you. And if it does happen, because there's not a lot of, on the oxtails that I got from my co-op, there's not a lot of meat on it at all, not like some others I've seen. I did that specifically, or bought that package specifically to keep the meat very, very low. Do you think I'll be okay with that?
I would still save the meat for tomorrow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't introduce meat on day one.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe just the broth and the marrow.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
And she mentioned, you guys, that she watched the replay. If you go to Jimmy on Clubhouse on Instagram, I am simulcasting live over there. And as soon as it's done there, it goes right up on IGTV. I also pop it on YouTube. Type in Jimmy on Clubhouse. You will find the YouTube channel where you can watch these on replay. And we'll probably air some of these on my podcasts as well. So you'll be able to hear the information back if you missed any of the previous days. Dr. Amir, did you have any other comments?
Yeah, I was going to say the saving grace about being on a diet like that is that your body is kind of also looking out for you during the time as well. In that your body takes some of that protein and is converting some of that protein to carb. Right, it does that anyway because your body, of course, you have specific cells, certain parts of your RBCs, brain, adrenals that require a certain amount of glucose every day, and so your body is also maintaining those mechanisms where it's taking some of that protein and converting it to carb, which helps in the long haul because if we were truly zero carb, like in terms of we're not taking in any carb and our body is not producing any carb. We'd be in a world of hurt. So how that benefits somebody who's been fasting for a very long time and hasn't had any carb exposure as an external intake is that your body still maintains some knowledge there with regards to the carb intake and with regards to resiliency, if you
sure
what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Pepe, what you got for us, man?
Hello, hi, Jamie. Thanks for this room. I read your book a couple of years ago, Keto Clarity. I'm a big fan. It's an honor to be with you in the room.
Thank you, kind sir. What you got for us today?
So yeah, I'm a Spaniard. I live in Switzerland. I've been doing intermittent fasting for a couple of years. I'm talking about 18 hours. I've been pretty good. Sometimes I do 24 hours fasting, and I struggle at the end, but I manage. And here in Europe, it's very popular now with this Italian doctor, this fasting mimicking diets. I just finished this famous, 5-day program with this fasting mimicking diet.
Yeah.
I felt amazing, a lot of mental clarity. I lost 10 pounds. It has been great. I think that each day, you have like little packs and it's like 800 calories per day. And to be honest, I didn't have any hunger at all. I was like perfectly satisfied. Obviously, I missed to eat real food. I was craving for like veggies and fruits and stuff like that. But I managed. I finished it yesterday. And my question to everyone here is like, I just want to understand if this is really fasting, if this limit of 800 calories can really trigger all those healthy benefits that we want to have with fasting. I was wondering if this is really the thing, or you guys would recommend Jose no go with the traditional fasting.
Oh, the research team behind fasting mimicking, they've got solid science. They've been doing the research that's out there. But my thing, Dr. Amir, why mimic fasting when you can just fast?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the degree of benefit and the length of benefit. There are certain things that you're only going to achieve, or I should say that you would have to do so much more to achieve the same thing with the water fasting. So, for example, if you do a modified fast, will you get some of those hormonal changes? Will you see growth hormones surge? Will you see all these effects occur? Will you see decrease in insulin? Will you see all these things? Yes, over time you will, right? It's just that it's a longer time to get there. Whereas water fasting is kind of like hitting the reset button. And that's the thing. So it really just depends upon what your personal needs are. And the other thing that I want to make sure that I'm clear with in terms of some of the 800 calorie diets and some of these things, your body likes to adjust to things, and so when you're new to a diet, when you're new to a small calorie diet and things of that nature, even if it is one that promotes ketogenesis, your body, because you're newer to it, your body's going to respond in a profound way, and you're going to enjoy that. The thing is that your body begins to adapt. It gets very intelligent. And so, for example, what I used to be able to do to get into ketosis, like just, regular diets and stuff like that, it's much more difficult for me to get into ketosis with that. And there's, of course, many things that can complex that, especially if you're dealing with, for example, if you have cheeses and some of these pasteurized things, these kind of things can muddy the waters. But also, I find that, though, your body adjusts, right? Your body can't adjust to water fasting. If there's no calories, your body can't psych its way out of that. What's going to happen is your metabolic rate is going to initially drop, then it's going to increase back to the normal metabolic rate, and then it's going to increase past every single time. So the only thing is do those things as first, experience that, experiment with that. But when you get to a place where you can't really get the benefits that you're looking for beyond that, that's when I'm going to say, okay, your body is telling you, if you're going to go further than that, the only way I'm going to give that to you is if you water fast.
Yeah.
So it's something to kind of put in your back pocket.
So, Dr. Caitlin, do you ever use fasting mimicking in lieu of fasting, or are you hardcore, try the fast, and if you don't feel well, I'll help you with it?
So, are you talking specifically about prolong, like Dr. Walter Longo's?
Yes, Walter Longo's work, yes.
So, I do. I love his science supporting it. I tried it with a few other female colleagues a few years ago when it first came out and tested it because I had been fasting for quite some time and I wanted to compare it to what would happen for me blood sugar ketone wise in lieu of just doing water. And it was a far slower process for me to get into ketosis than if I were to do strictly water. And at the time, I didn't feel very good on it because of some of the ingredients they were using in order to add fiber.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I personally would rather just do it myself. Now, can I see some benefit for certain people, especially initially starting out? Absolutely. If you are a type 2 diabetic, you're eating the standard American diet, this would be a great introduction to fasting. It would be a great way to start to decrease caloric and carbohydrate and the sheer amount because the foods are portioned out. But is it something that I would recommend people do, long term, every month or every year? No, I would use this more as a crutch to get you into this lifestyle and then transition you over into real foods and water fasting.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Pepe. Lesha, you're up next.
Hi.
There she is.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hi.
Okay, my question is, can women with cortisol issues fast? And if so, is there a time limit where maybe it pushes it beyond to where it even stresses out the body even more? That's my first question. Second is it normal to be extremely cold all the time after like 2 days of fasting?
Cortisol issues. Lindsey, go.
Yeah, absolutely. It depends. Are you talking about high cortisol or are you talking about low cortisol? High cortisol. So when we're fasting, we do initiate a cortisol response, and so it can be something that will raise your cortisol. So can any type of fasting. It's a hormetic stress on the body, but the healing properties of fasting do allow the body to self-regulate and to help to heal and to bring those cortisol levels down.
So, Dax, how about the cold?
I'm not very well advised.
Yeah. Do you get cold, I guess? Do you get cold during your fasting?
Oh, as far as the coldness, absolutely, I get cold. I get cold usually on a 7-day fast at least 2 times.
Yes.
Really cold, where I need some additional assistance, like an electric blanket,
Yeah.
a hot water bottle around my midsection, just to keep my core warm. I'll take a hot shower. I'll take a hot bath. If it's a summertime, I'll definitely get out and some sunshine. But I always I stay bundled up if necessary, just to make sure I don't get into a very cold state for very long.
It's the weirdest thing. I've not been cold one single time, Caitlin, this entire fast. But what do you got for Lesha for the cold?
Yeah, what can happen, especially women who are dealing with high cortisol. High cortisol is an adrenal stress response. And so that could be coming from a multiple of pathways. It could be a thyroid imbalance. And as we fast, our insulin drops, which then means our need for T3 drops. And T3 is one of the hormones that help regulate our body temperature. And so as our T3 goes down, we can have really this sensation of cold body, cold hands, cold feet. The other thing that could cause cold hands and feet is a magnesium deficiency. So what I would typically recommend is adding some magnesium in and see if that helps. And if that helps, you're likely deficient in magnesium to begin with, and that could be contributing to elevated cortisol. Now, what I recommend, if this is a chronic thing, everyone's individual. I'm not giving medical advice and or telling you what to do, but I would want to know why the cortisol is elevated and also implement other things to help bring down cortisol, because fasting is a stressor on the body. And if you're already dealing with really elevated cortisol, I'd be interested to see what's happening with your sex hormones. Are you shunting and doing a pregnenolone shift into creating more cortisol and downregulating hormone production? Because that would really play into when and how to fast.
Lesha, does that help?
Yeah, it's really stress related, so that's why I was wondering, is fasting even going to cause more stress? So should I just avoid it for now?
Dr. Amir?
Really, but yes.
Well, I was going to say, I love Dr. Caitlin's answer on dealing with cortisol and the fact that there are multiple pathways, even up to the hypothalamus in the brain. But the thing that I also wanted to make sure that I set clear is that when you're fasting, there are specific times where that decrease in body temperature is going to be fairly prevalent, and it's normal. It's expected. For example, when you're around 48 hours, what's happening? Well, at that point, you've exhausted all of your glucose stores, right? And your body is just now getting ready to start breaking down fats. You're just now getting ready to start spitting out ketones, right? And so so at that time, your metabolic rate has dropped, right? And that metabolic rate is part of that temperature driving. So when we talk about T3, the thyroid hormone, and we talk about these things, these are the changes that are occurring right in that time frame, right? And it's actually expected. Some people, they've been fasting so long that their body rarely sees it because their body has become so used to fasting, and they become so regimented in their routine. Their metabolic rate is their resting metabolic rate is completely different to the person who is not doing this all of the time. But it is expected at around 48 hours. So I would just encourage you in that, as soon as your body hits ketosis, your metabolic rate is going to start increasing back to normal. And then it's going to increase above normal because eventually by day 5, your adrenal glands are spitting out IGF-1. So during that time, that's going to be your growth hormone, if you will. That's your trigger for your growth hormone. And that's being released by the liver, the IGF-1 portion of it. And so then your metabolic rate goes above normal. So now you're feeling hot and you're tired and your sleep might be interrupted because now your body is breaking down those fats and it's producing so much energy that your body is like, I'm not tired. I got all this energy. So you can see these kind of things, and depending upon how long you've been fasting, it's going to be more pronounced, right? And if you have other conditions going on. But the thing that I would tell you is that even though that stress is occurring during water fast, now if you have, like, say, Cushing's disease, or you got some other underlying medical condition that's going along with this, then I'm going to say make sure that you do things in a way that you're being monitored, and I would bring in a professional for that. I'd bring in somebody who is medically trained for that portion, right? But if you don't have any underlying conditions, understand that cortisol level is going to eventually be reset. Right. And the reason is because your body is going through this process and it's resetting a lot of different mechanisms. This is why you see sometimes even people with immune disorders, you'll hear reports of somebody who says, oh, I had IBD and now I've been fasting and all of a sudden I'm not showing this irritable bowel. You know what I'm saying? I'm not having inflammatory bowel. I'm not my Crohn's is much better managed or it's disappeared altogether. And the reason that you're seeing this is because your body is going through a reset. But I just want to say that little point again. It is entirely normal during those first 2 to 3 days of the fast to feel absolutely cold. And it's entirely normal to feel it again in prolonged fasting. Right. Because the next big event that occurs is once that growth hormone initially spikes and you're feeling hot, right after that, your body says, you know what? I'm going to get rid of some of this inflammation, and I'm going to go ahead and get some more immune cells swapped out, and I'm going to increase, for example, generation of stem cells. All these things are occurring. All these things are beginning to occur. So then you hit that second wave of feeling cold again. So that's just the physiology behind it. So don't feel too alarmed by it. Just make sure that you have your accountability people in place.
Thank you, Dr. Amir. Lesha, did that?
Non-medical. This is Amir.
Yeah.
Standard.
Lesha?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Teresa, you're up next.
Hi. Well, my first question was about the apple cider vinegar breaking a fast. So you answered that. But my other question is doing like an 18 and a 24-hour fast. How often can you do it, like in a month time?
18 to 24, you could do those. Well, 18 could practically be done every day if you wanted to. I'd be curious what Caitlin does. Do you say more than 1 to 2 24-hour fasts? What's your protocol, Caitlin?
So it goes back to hormone production in women. And so we're just going to go back to cycles again. You can do
postmenopausal.
Mm-hmm. So from new moon to full moon, you can do those as much as you want. Full moon to new moon, I would really down-regulate that because you do still want to support hormone production, progesterone and estrogen. So I would do at most like a 16-8, maybe an 18-6 from the full moon to the new moon, just so that we're not depleting our the hormones to produce progesterone and estrogen, especially since it's coming from the adrenal glands now. Yeah. So those are the protocols that I implement with
Lindsey?
The women that I work with.
Lindsey, what do you do? Lindsey going once.
I'm sorry, my 10-year-old. I'm not commenting right now. I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Or you could rephrase it.
She's being mommy right now. It's all good. Teresa, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're at the last commenter of the day. Last but not least is Kim, and she has an interesting story.
I'm excited to share, and Jimmy, if I miss anything,
I'll fill in the blanks, yes.
Okay. This is the longest water fast I've ever done. I've done 26 at 28 hours, I believe. In my 20s and early 30s, I did the well-known lemonade cleanse that we all did at that age, along with the cabbage soup cleanse and all those crazy things. But I'm in day 6. 7 tonight, it's 3 in the afternoon for me, will be starting day 7. And what I'm really excited about, I have an energy holistic doctor in LA that I'm friends with and that I see. And he uses a Vega machine, which is like a biofeedback, but you can see how well your body reacts to different things and what's going on the inside. And I saw him last week and we tested everything and saw how all my organs are performing. And I'm able to go in on Monday and have everything retested that we did and, that he has written down. So I'm going to be able to really see from the inside how my body's responding to this fast, which I think is pretty darn cool. And it'll be interesting to be flying and see if that causes stress. And I'm working next week, which is why I'm going to be in LA. So I'm going to see how long I can go with working to see, because I feel great on this. So just seeing how long I can go with it.
Yeah. Dax, do you ever travel when you're doing these longer fasts, Dax, and does it impact you?
Actually, I made a conscious decision back when I started fasting that I would not do that. I was, I'd read a number of books, Rational Fasting by Professor Arnold Arett, and then The Miracle of Fasting by Paul Bragg. And what I took from those books is that it's very important to pretty much be static when you're fasting, stay
Yes.
in one place, be comfortable, get plenty of rest, and travel is always a bit stressful, and of course you've got the issues of being around a whole lot of people. So I prefer to stay in one place when I fast. It's just it works better for me.
One thing to add also is your immune system is temporarily depressed in a longer fast. And so that's one thing to think about. It will come back, or it will regenerate and stronger than ever, but your body is in that conservation mode and that healing mode. So that's something to think about when we're traveling.
I travel for work, so I kind of don't have a choice with it. But if that's, with that insight, I'll probably just buy bone broth when I'm in Los Angeles and break it right after I see the doctor.
The quick question is, how long are your fasts typically if you do, like, say, a water fast or something like that?
The longest I've ever gone is 28 hours, I think.
Yeah, so in that case, it's probably not going to be as much of a problem. It's definitely in that prolonged period. Once you get to where you want to go a week and beyond, that's when I'm going to really sound the alarm. You can experience a little bit of immunodepression before that, but where I get concerned for people is once you're getting out there in a prolonged fast where we're hitting day 7, day 8, somewhere around there, that's when I'm like, okay, be wise about it. That's the time where I'm saying, hey, you should be doing this. We should all be doing these things anyway. Like when we go somewhere, carry hand sanitizer, do all these things. But that's the time where I'm saying, being a little bit more anal about it is probably appropriate.
So Kim,
Monday will be day 8.
Oh, yeah. You mask, gloves, hand sanitizer, whatever you can use to mitigate the risk.
Kim, can you?
Additionally,
Go ahead, Dax. Go.
I was going to say, additionally, when you're at this stage of a fast, particularly given that your longest fast was only a couple of days previous to this, you really don't know what is going to happen physiologically to your body, and traveling can present some real demands that may put your body under stress and cause you additional issues that you're not really going to be aware of, especially the first time you fasted this long.
So, Kim, can you talk about some of the thyroid stuff? I want to see Caitlin's response.
Oh, yeah. I 5 years ago, I had a total hysterectomy, so ovaries and uterus out. And after that, my thyroid shut down. So I'm taking Nature Throid, which is switching to Armor because Nature Throid isn't made anymore. So we're going to test my thyroid pill level, which is very small. I'm only taking 3/4 of a grain. But we're going to test that to see if my body is responding better to it so we can lower my thyroid medication, which is why I'm trying to hold out without anything in my system and just go in totally clear to the doctor. But if y'all think breaking it tomorrow, which would be the middle of day 7 with bone broth, would be a better idea, I mean, I would absolutely take counsel with that.
Dr. Caitlin?
What part do you want me to comment on, Jimmy?
Any of it that you think you have relevant information.
Okay. So what I see happen a lot, especially with people who are taking hormones because their body's not producing it, specifically thyroid, as we fast, your body becomes more sensitive to everything because it's downregulating inflammation. And when we downregulate inflammation, it's allowing our receptors to be more receptive. So what can absolutely happen is not only can our own thyroid begin to pick up better function, but the sensitivity to the amount of medication, the amount of hormone that we're taking along with the hormones that our body is making can actually upregulate. And so over time, I've definitely seen women who have been able to decrease the amount of medication that they need due to their body functioning at a higher rate. The other thing that can happen too is, and this isn't for everybody, but on occasion, women can even, and men, can get off of the medication because their body, for whatever was causing the downregulation of thyroid production or utilization, can improve. So whether it was a production issue, whether it was a conversion issue, whether it was a utilization issue, fasting can really help improve that a whole ton. And then as for the breaking the fast, you ultimately have to figure that out for you, and listen to your body, do what you feel is best. I would try and meditate and do a whole bunch of things to calm myself before traveling. Staying hydrated, getting more electrolytes in might be of benefit because that's something that I do when I travel. I try not to eat when I'm traveling just because digestion really goes down anyway when you're flying. So I will take added things like electrolytes and drinking more water and more salts the day of travel regardless. So maybe that's something you can consider. But again, not medical advice, not treatment, not nothing.
I get it.
Just education purposes.
Kim, does that help?
And I'm lucky because I'm one of these people that gets on a plane and falls asleep no matter what time of day.
You're lucky.
So
yeah.
I'm blessed with that. And I think because I travel so much, I'm on the road 2 to 3 weeks a month. So traveling is like a normal part of my life. So I think I have a bit of benefit with that being a lifestyle too. So I'll try it. And if, it hits the fan, then
then you'll know.
I take the next step.
Yes. Dr. Amir, did you have some comments?
Yeah, I was just going to say be hyper attentive, especially with the thyroid stuff. See, I didn't have that piece of information. If I'm you, I'm just going to be even more watchful. Paying attention to even the smallest of things. Whenever there's a presence of other issues, right? If we have any other dis-ease going on, you know, you want to make sure that you're watching everything closely, because the thyroid, for it to be such a small piece of tissue in terms of the space that it takes up on the body, it has massive effects. So, you know, subtle changes can be very exaggerated, right? Subtle changes in the tissue, subtle changes in the tissue responsiveness can promote exaggerative changes. So just being very mindful of that, be aware of it.
It's amazing. If I knew, you know, hindsight's 2020, if I knew 5 years ago the effects that a total hysterectomy would have had when my hormones were at the level of a 25-year-old, I never would have done it. But, you know, didn't have the knowledge back then, even, you know, being a nurse and stuff. And 3 months after the hysterectomy, my thyroid just shut down.
Wow.
So it was interesting.
Well, Kim, thanks for your question and your comment.
Thank you, guys.
And guys, that's the last comment we have. Definitely go follow Dr. Caitlin, Dax, Lindsey, Dr. Amir, and myself. I didn't know what to expect on a Saturday. I think this was the most interesting episode we did all week. So thank you guys for all for your contributions up here on stage. And guys, you're in the Keto for the Soul room. Definitely click on the little green house at the top, subscribe, and join. This was day number 6 of my 7-day water fasting challenge. Tomorrow is day number 7. We'll all celebrate. I need to have some party music playing tomorrow when I come on. Yay. But 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, come in. Mine officially ends, although I won't end it, at 10:30 a.m. I think I'm going to go a little longer. We'll talk about that tomorrow, you guys, why you might want to push it a little longer and what some of the benefits of that could be. But thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you around the clubhouse.